have you. First weekend of the new year. Good to have you all here. Man, as Scott was talking about the Bible conference, I was just thinking, I'm super excited about the Bible conference. Make sure that you sign up because there's other churches that are trying to get in and we're like, we don't want you to get in until our people are in. And there's gonna be some awesome preaching. Charlie Dates is one of the greatest communicators in America. I'm gonna be preaching. I actually went on Twitter and Instagram and said, hey, what should I preach at the Bible conference? I got 1 hour to preach, either Psalm 23 or Revelation chapter 1, and everyone voted Revelation chapter 1. So I started researching it yesterday. I think I made a mistake, but it's gonna be crazy, all right? So Revelation 1, y'all. So make sure you sign up for Bible conference, it's gonna be awesome. All right, here's the series that we're doing right now. If you got your bulletins, make sure you pull those out. My name is Mark. Glad that you are here. If you are new to Bayside, This Could Be the Year is the name of the series. And what we wanted to do is we asked you on Christmas Eve, what are the things that you want to work on? This could be the year that what? And we gave you 9 options and everyone voted on it. We got thousands and thousands of votes. And this one that we're talking about today was the third highest voted thing that people said this could be the year. And it was, this could be the year that you find joy. So that's the topic that we're talking about, the concept of you finding joy. And the reason that doesn't surprise me that it was so popular is because joy, here's what I think. Joy is the #1 motivating factor of your life. If you think about it, right? Joy is the reason you make the decisions that you do. Joy, your own happiness is the reason you wear the clothes that you wear, right? The reason that you're gonna go eat this afternoon and where you eat is driven by your own happiness, by your own joy, by your own pleasure. You married who you married, why? Not because they were just available, right? None of you showed up on your wedding day and were like, okay, well, I just had to choose someone. You know, it was like, why do you marrying that person? Because they give you what? Joy, happiness, they make you feel good, you love them. This is what motivates you in life. It's why a bunch of you, how many of you traveled during Christmas? Right? How many of you jumped on a plane and went somewhere and you hung out with family that you haven't seen all year, right? Why do you do all this? It's for joy, the nostalgia, be together, cook some food, hang out. Some of you went and chopped down a tree. Have you ever stepped back during Christmas and realized the weirdness of what we do? Like you went and chopped a tree down and then you put it in your house and you put lights on it and you sat around it and you opened gifts that you wrapped, you moron. What are you doing? What are you doing? What is all of this that we do? It's all driven by joy, your passion, your happiness. You want to feel something. We are driven by joy. So here's a great passage in the Bible that I always think about. Hebrews chapter 12 says this. Here's what are the motivating factors of Jesus. Here's one of the principles for your life. And if you got your notes, pull them out. I got a whole bunch of stuff for you to write down. First principle is you can endure a lot of things when you know joy is waiting for you on the other side. Here's what Jesus says in Hebrews chapter 12. It talks about the idea that for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So when Jesus was suffering, when Jesus was going through pain, the joy that was set before him helped him endure the pain of that cross. The joy of providing salvation for us helped him endure. There's a lot of things you can endure when you know that joy is awaiting you on the other side, right? So this past Christmas season, here's how this worked out for me. So Christmas season is super busy for all of us, but for a pastor, it's like, you know, we had 12 Christmas Eve services and there was a lot of them. And so I was kind of going through it and I was preaching all these services. I preached 9 out of the 12 and the other 3 I was here meeting y'all. And here's the thing, guys, I love it. I love preaching all those services for you, and it's just so awesome not seeing my family for a week and a half. I just love being up here and doing that for you guys. And it was tiring, and it was a lot. It was like, I'm doing all that, and it's weird because there's so many services, I don't even know. We flipped them around so fast, we're like, I don't even know if I said this joke already. I don't know who these people are. Did I already say that? All right, Teddy Ruxpin, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. My mind is gone. I'm tired. I haven't seen my kids in a week and a half. All of that, right? And then even when we built up, we decided as a family to go away right after Christmas because of the busyness of the Christmas season. And we're like, okay, let's make sure we go away. And this is a tradition that we have as a family because we don't have any family locally. And so every Christmas, once all the Christmas Eve services are done, Christmas Day, we jump in a plane and we go somewhere with sunshine, which is, we got that in our bones when we were in Vancouver for 20 years and it was never sunny. And then Ray offered me a job down here in Sacramento and he said, you'll never have to do that again because it's always sunny here. What? He's a liar, man, because it is not sunny here right now. So we're like, as a family, we're gonna get out of Dodge. We gotta go somewhere sunny. So set this thing up for a week. So busy. And so we got this place somewhere sunny and we got the 5:45 a.m. flight the day after Christmas, right? Which is awful, guys. It makes me want to throw up because you got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you got to so we're like, okay, well, here's the plan. We got to clean it up and we got to get up. We got 3 o'clock and we all get in the truck. Boom, we got to get to the airport, get in the line. So we get up, it's 3 o'clock. We're all running around, brushing our teeth, getting all ready, getting our stuff all ready. It's like Home Alone. And then we jumped in the truck and it's 3:30 in the morning. I turn the truck on, I go to leave and I look back at my rear view and I have 3 daughters and there was only 2 back there. And I'm like, what? Where's the other one? And they're like, I don't know. And so I ran in the house and I'm like, ran down to her. And so there's this guy staying at our house for the full week to take care of our dogs. And so he's there and I run past him and I run down the stairs and I run into her room and I open there. I'm like, hey, you got to wake up. She's like, what? I'm like, dude, we're in the car. We got to go. She's like, I'm like, let's go. She'd been up all night. So I said, where's your stuff? I'm gonna throw in the truck. She's like, it's at the top of the stairs. I'm like, okay. So I run to the top of the stairs and I got this a suitcase, there's a black hockey bag, there's a purse. So I say, truck all this stuff out to the truck, throw it in there, get in the car. She comes running out, she feeds her dumb cat, jumps in the car, and we take off. And we go to the airport. And we're driving to the airport. I'm like, shoom. I gotta get out and run behind. I gotta get to the airport. And not thinking, man, this is the day after Christmas, right? So it's gonna be, we walk in, but there's a lineup, the longest lineup I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, we just get off the little tram and we stand there. We're like, we gotta get going, man. And this lineup's going so slow and the dogs are sniffing around. There's all kinds of stuff going on. We're like, hey, we gotta get on this plane. And so tick, got to security. And it's literally 5:15 now and this plane leaves at 5:45. And then it's 5:30. And we have friends that are on the plane and they're texting us, are you coming? I'm like, bro, we are behind schedule. Just act crazy. All right, slow the plane down. Like start walking around, we gotta shut this plane down. So I'm like, do something. He's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in security. So my whole family gets through security. They run to the gate. And of course, my little backpack goes, and they're like, sorry, we're gonna have to check your backpack. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm standing there watching this guy and he's just taking his sweet time. He's just, I don't know what, he's playing Minesweeper or something on the computer. I'm like, bro, my whole family's, so he looks, grabs my bag, hands it to me, he goes, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, you didn't even look at it. And I gotta run down to the gate. I get to the gate and my whole family standing there and the kids are all bawling, crying. And they're like, plane's gone, Daddy. And the guy looks at me, he's like, sorry, you were 1 minute late. I'm like, 1 minute late? He's like, yeah, the plane pulled away. So I'm like, what are you doing? I don't understand. You got kids day after Christmas, my kids are crying. He's like, sorry, Pastor Mark. I'm like, shoot, you know me. So this whole thing would have gone vastly different if I knew you knew me. I'd be like, what's the big deal with planes? Who cares? So anyways, point being, and then we got to the plane and so it's 5 hours until our next plane. So I was sitting there killing 5 hours. And then we get on the plane, it's turbulent and the kids are crying. All of that, chaos. Here's my point. I can endure all of it. The Christmas services, the 3 in the morning, because when that plane landed, there was sunshine. And there was a nice time with my family where we got to just hang out and be together. See, we can endure almost anything when we know that joy awaits us on the other side, right? We can get through anything in life. This is what the Bible's constantly trying to do. It's trying to say, hey, I want to give you the kind of joy that nothing in this world can give you. Jesus is the only way to get the kind of joy that nothing in this world can give you. And what our world does is it comes along and says, I know how to give you joy. Here's the solution to your joy. It's a shiny car. It's a lot of success. It's looking beautiful. It's a lot of money. That's the way to get joy. And here's the problem with that. Every single one of those things lets us down at some point, right? They let us down. It goes away. You get older. You lose your job. All the money you used to have disappears. That perfect marriage ends up not being perfect anymore. I did a lot of premarital counseling in my years as a pastor. And I remember sitting with this one couple one time, and I looked at this young couple, and they were getting married in a couple months, and I looked at them, and I looked at the guy. I said, hey, let me ask you a question. As you get married, I want to ask you what your expectations are around intimacy. How often do you think you're going to be intimate with your wife every week? And he said 13 times. I'm like, wow, that's very specific. What do you mean? And he's like, well, we're gonna twice a day and then once on Sunday. That was his logic, right? I'm like, what are you, Sabbathing? You're resting? I don't understand what's going on. What is this concept? You need to take a break on Sunday. But here's why we laugh at that, because we know that didn't end up being that guy's experience, right? No way. He's being intimate 13 times a week. Because here's the thing, guys. We have a lot of expectations on people, and they always let us down, right? And some of you look to a wife, or you look to a husband, or you look to money, or you look to whatever, and you think, this thing is gonna give me happiness. This thing is gonna give me joy. And they let you down every single time, which is why the Bible comes along and says, no. That's not the way toward. The way toward joy is not life fulfillment, it's soul fulfillment. Because things in life get old so fast. A couple years ago, my family and I went on a little trip, and we were with all these people, and they booked, have you ever been on one of those like snorkeling trips with like a group of people? And so it was like 20, 30 people, and they booked us to go on this little snorkeling trip on this yacht. Now, a yacht, I've never even been on a yacht before. Yachting is not like my thing, but they booked it on this yacht. And so we got on this yacht with all these people. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going snorkeling. And my kids got, and when we saw that yacht sitting at the harbor, we're like, oh my gosh, this thing's incredible. So we got on the yacht, and it was like the best 3 hours of our life. We're out in the sun, we're swimming and snorkeling. We're on a yacht right now. This is the most beautiful yacht I've ever seen. This is great. Look at this beautiful yacht. Now, here's the crazy. We go snorkeling. We saw some whales. It was incredible. The crazy thing was, the 3 hours, by the time we pulled back into the harbor, we're all sitting there on the yacht, and we started to notice other yachts. And we went, oh, this yacht's smaller than those yachts. Why is this yacht so old looking? Actually, those yachts are nicer yachts than this yacht. This is a junky yacht. See, this is what happens. What is wrong with us? What the heck is wrong with us? We lose these things so quickly. What used to be so wonderful, that's because you're looking to life for joy. Life will not give you joy. The only thing that will is when your soul is at rest. So here's the reality. Some of us, if you ask the question, what is Christianity about? I was sitting around with a bunch of non-Christians recently, and I said, if I ask you, what do you think Christianity is about? What would you say? And they said, well, it's about being moral. It's about being a good person. It's about going to church. It's about reading the Bible. And I said, no, it's not about any of those things. What if I told you that Christianity was all about your joy? That was what it is at its core. They're like, what are you talking about? Even with Christians, they're like, nah. So here's the thing. I want to prove it to you. All right, so pull these out real quick. I'm going to prove to you from the Bible that what God cares about is your joy. That's what the Bible's about. Okay, here we go. Let's rip through these. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're going to get into this. It's 2025, y'all. All right, you're going to start talking back to me like Pentecostals. All right, here we go. John chapter 15, verse 11. I have told you this is Jesus, so that my may be in you and that your may be complete. That verse right there, fascinating verse. Jesus is saying, I have joy. I've had it from eternity past. I'm God. I've had it, delight and pleasure forever in heaven, became a human being, and now I don't want to keep that joy to myself. I want to share it. That's mind-boggling. That should change your whole perspective on the Bible right there. Jesus is saying, the reason I came, the reason I lived a perfect life in your place, the reason I died was to share my joy with you. Psalm 4, verse 7, fill my heart with when their grain and new wine abound. Everyone's looking to bread and wine to make them happy. Lord, you make me happy. Proverbs 10, the prospect of the righteous is, but the hopes of the wicked come to nothing. John 16, until now you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive and your will be complete. 1 Peter chapter 1, though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with inexpressible and glorious. Come on, say it like you're happy. Yes. I did notes for you. I thought I'm gonna start a new thing. I'm gonna give you some notes. We're gonna start the new year. I'm gonna change my ways, and you're doing a horrible job. Terrible job. Romans chapter 15, may the God of hope fill you with joy. Romans 14, for the kingdom of God is not a matter of eating and drinking, but of righteousness, peace, and joy. Philippians chapter 4, rejoice. That one messed you up a little bit. You're like, wait. Rejoice in the Lord always. Here's the point, guys. The Bible is all about your joy from beginning to end. A guy named John Piper writes these words: the gospel is not a way to get people to heaven. It's a way of overcoming every obstacle to everlasting joy in God. The Westminster Catechism, written in 1647, says, what is the chief end of man? This is the opening sentence. What is the chief purpose of human beings? To glorify God and to enjoy him forever. This is what we're after. This is why companies, there was a report I read the other day, companies have started to hire joy consultants at their companies because they want everyone happy, because they know happy people are gonna get stuff done, right? Guys, here's the problem. Dave from HR ain't gonna give you joy. Only Jesus can give you joy. Now, here's the next thing for your notes. Joy is a choice. Write that down. Joy is a choice that you and I make every day. This is why Galatians 5 says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, because you need it communally. Love is not something you can just do for yourself. You love other people. Joy is something you do. Paul's talking about the church collectively, Bayside church, not just individuals. Bayside as a church has to have joy. This is why we do the kinds of things we do. This is why we don't take ourselves too serious, right? There's a seriousness that's like, okay, so I follow this Twitter account called Church Curmudgeon, right? And it's just some old guy's face looking miserable, and he's just a churchy old guy just reaming on about churchy type stuff all the time. And this is what so many churches are like. So many Christians are just mean, judgmental, miserable, not happy. And Paul's going, the two characteristics that are supposed to define you are love and joy, and our faces don't look like it, right? I remember when I first came into the church, I just bumped into a whole bunch of random people that just weren't happy, right? I was a chain smoking kid. I came in at 19. I didn't know the rules. So I came into church one day, I had a big piece of pizza and a pop, and I'm like watching the show. I'm like, oh. Some guy walks up, he's like, this is the sanctuary. I'm like, what's a sanctuary? I don't even understand. So I went out, smoked my cigarette outside the church. There's a big window, it's the pastor's office, and they're just staring at me, right? And afterwards, they come to me, they're like, we're praying for you. I'm like, I'm praying for you. What are you talking about? All these church people, but the church is supposed to be a place of joy. That's why we do what we do as a church. That's why we do trunk or treat, Halloween, right? We're trying to have fun with the kiddos. And then other churches like, oh, you're not at Halloween, man. You're so miserable. There's churches that'll come out and picket our Halloween thing as a church. Little kids are showing up getting candy, and there's churches like, oh, you're from Satan. It's like, shut up. We're trying to have fun. We're trying to have joy. God forbid the church has joy as the defining factor of its life rather than seriousness all the time. I remember I was preaching one time a few years ago up at our church, and I made this point. I said, hey, my wife, Erin, thinks Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor, is hot. Right? And so does that lady, all right? And I remember, man, I got emails. Oh, the emails. How dare you as a pastor put in my wife's head that Chris Hemsworth is hot. I'm offended we're leaving your church. I'm like, you think you needed me to put in your wife's head that Chris Hemsworth is hot? He plays Thor. Talking about. You are living in denial, man. Listen, if you are offended that I would get on stage and say Thor is hot, this ain't the church for you. We take ourselves way too serious as a church, and yet the Bible goes, joy is supposed to define us. Joy. But you got to choose it, and you got to find it. Here's the next thing you can write down. You got to find joy in the small things of life and then lean into those things. I noticed that this week when we were flying back, we sat in these seats, and my one daughter sat with me because there wasn't enough seats. There was like a Southwest flight, so you got to quickly jump in and get your seats. So me and my daughter, and then there was my daughters are teenagers now, so they've started to notice boys, right? And so we got in the seat, and there was this guy sitting on the aisle, and he was a good-looking kid, probably like 22, and like a baseball boy, right? Like all those guys. And so him and I just started to talk, and she was like so embarrassed. She's like, Dad, why are you talking to this guy? Just shut up. But then I kind of like it because he's talking over me the whole time, so that's kind of cool too. So him and I are just chatting about life and da-da-da-da-da. And then I noticed once the plane took off, he started watching Inception on his laptop. Inception, I'm a big movie guy, so it's like one of my favorite movies. I've seen it like 100 times. So I'm sitting there looking over at this guy, and I'm watching him watch Inception for the first time. And I'm just taking it in with him. And I'm like, oh, wait till this part happens, wait till this part happens. And the whole flight, I'm just watching him, I'm like, right? And he's like, I'm like, right, and spin the totem, ooh, right? But it sparked a conversation. Here I am, I'm just taking this small little thing in life, this movie that we're both, and I'm going, I wanna lean in to this moment to see what can come of this. And some of you miss the normal, average, everyday moments of life because you're not looking through it. How do I suck the most amount of joy out of this life that I can and then express it to other people? Because that's your evangelism. When you're telling people about Jesus, what you're telling them is, I want you to experience all the joy in the world. This isn't just about, I want you to not go to hell. Why don't you want people to go to hell? Because hell will steal their joy. That's the point of it. Their eternal joy. So when you tell somebody about Christ, it's not you going, I want you to agree with me with my ideas. It's not a political conversation. It's, I want to remove your eternal misery. I want you to have a deeper joy than you can ever imagine. This is what the Bible's constantly on about. And so here's 3 principles for your life for how to find joy. First, root your life in God, not good. Root your life in God, not good. Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Notice he was not, when he wrote the book of Philippians, he was not sitting on a beach somewhere in sunshine having a good time. Where was he? Prison. His life circumstances were not perfect when he wrote the words, rejoice in the Lord. In fact, the book of Philippians has the most amount of times the word joy is used in one book of the Bible, other than the Psalms. Joy, joy, joy. And the guy's in prison, which means it's not about your circumstances. Your circumstances life could be beating you up right now. And you're like, because when we hear rejoice in the Lord always, we think of it, like remember hearing that song when you were a kid in Sunday school? Right, rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and then I say rejoice. Okay, so when I heard that, what we think in our brains is that's what Paul means, but that's not what he means. What he means is it's a soul posture in the midst of any circumstance of life that you could say, before my first daughter was born, 2006, I got a phone call from Erin. I was at work. She's 9 months pregnant, and she's walking at work, and she got hit by a car, 9 months pregnant. And in that moment, I jumped in my car to go see if she's okay, see if our baby's okay. She fell to the ground. We had to go down to the hospital and stethoscopes and all this kind of stuff. And when I'm getting in my car and I'm driving to her, what's going on in my mind is not See, I'm rejoicing in the Lord in the sense of like my identity, it's not rooted in the circumstance. I know God is in control. I'm not disbelieving in God anymore as I'm driving. But as I'm driving there, here's what I'm not doing. I'm not singing, rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice, rejoice. I'm not doing that. I'm going, life sucks in this moment. But I still believe in him. I still treasure him above my circumstances. I take all my joy from him, because here's what's gonna happen in life. Life is gonna beat up on you. Life is gonna try to steal your joy constantly. I have people, someone talked to me the other day, they're like, hey, have you seen that thing online that's, it's a video of you preaching, and everyone is in the comments talking about how you're a meth addict. Because I have Tourette's. And so I twitch my body around and my face around, I make weird noises. And so everyone's on the comments going, oh, I know a meth addict when I see one, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Guys, let me tell you something. If my identity was rooted in a bunch of morons on YouTube and what they think about me, I would be in a very dark place. And that's how some of you live. You care about what your coworkers think about you so much that it destroys your joy. You care about what your spouse said to you 3 years ago and it's stuck in your brain. You care about what the people at school think about you, at college, at whatever it is. Your life is defined by what other people say about you. And if my identity was rooted in what the internet thought about me, I would not be a happy person. But I don't care because my identity is in Jesus. That's the point. That's why you rejoice in the Lord always. That's what he's trying to say. You know, it doesn't matter what people say or think about you. As long as God looks at you and goes, you are my beloved in whom I am well pleased. Because, and here, guys, this is how beautiful, this is why he says rejoice in the Lord. Because what he wants you to know at the beginning of 2025, it's really important to think about. And I know this sounds really just average to say, but you got to think about it. This God that we're talking about, he's so good, guys. And sometimes we don't, like we talk about how he's powerful and he's so good. Now here's what I mean. So if some of you guys know who John Harris is. John Harris is one of the pastors around here, really good guy. And he has a ministry down in Nicaragua where he goes down there and he builds wells and he does all this really cool stuff. And so a little bit ago, a year or so ago, he went down to Nicaragua and he was on a surf. Part of his trip he was doing, and then he's a surfer. So he goes down and he surfs for a couple days in the midst of his stuff. So he goes down and he's surfing. And of course, for those of you who surf, like you're sitting in the water just paddling, waiting for the next wave a lot. So there's 20, 30 people just sitting, waiting for the next wave, and they're all chatting, whatever. And he's sitting there. So he's a chatty guy. So he just starts to chat up this random girl. He's like there's other people around, but there's like 20-year-old girl just sitting there. And he's like, hey, where are you from? And she says, oh, I'm from Canada. I'm from Vancouver. Of course, for those of you who don't know, I lived in Vancouver for 20 years. And so he's like, oh, that's cool. My friend just got hired at our church. He just moved down here a year or so ago. He's from Vancouver. She's like, oh, cool. What's his name? And he goes, oh, his name's Mark Clark. And she went white as a ghost. And he's like, what's up? And she's like, oh, I know him. And he's like, what do you mean you know him? And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, a year or two ago, I walked into his church, Village Church, and I came to know Jesus. I was living a messed up life and I came to know Christ and totally transformed my life. But in the last 6 months, I've started to run away from God. I don't want to be part of God anymore. I want to go and do whatever I want with my own body. I want to go off and do whatever I want with everyone. So I grabbed my passport and I started to run away from God and just started jumping around different countries and places to disappear so that no one would know who I am and I could do whatever I want. And now I'm floating in the middle of the ocean in Nicaragua and you show up and you're like, hi, God's still here. Do you know Mark Clark? I sure do. That's how good God is. He will hunt you down wherever you are. He will show up in the middle of the ocean and send randos to talk to you. anytime, anywhere, because he is fighting for your joy more than you are. That's how good he is. And then some of us run away from him and we don't want anything to do with him. And he's saying, guys, I have all the goodness in the world ready for you. Second principle, joy is a result of going after something else than joy. Here's what I mean. Nathaniel Hawthorne, who's a poet and a writer, he says going after joy is like going after a butterfly. You can't, the minute you reach for a butterfly, what does it do? It disappears. You can't go after joy. It's too fragile. You have to rest your hand and then see, this is how Jesus says it in Matthew chapter 5, one of the most important verses in the whole Bible. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Here's what Jesus says. Don't go after satisfaction because it will elude you. Go after righteousness and you will be satisfied. The way you get joy isn't by trying to get joy, it's by trying to get God. Because life will let you down, right? Tony Robbins is wrong, guys. You are not winners. Let me save you $20,000. You are losers. The universe is not set up for you to win. It's not set up for you to be gods and goddesses. It is set up for you to lose. Just give it time. And yet the gospel comes along and says, but you can still win eternally. It doesn't mean you won't die. It just means now, in the words of Paul in Philippians, to die is what? Gain. It's that when you keep trusting to that, see, some of you, the only thing you have joy in is that spouse, that person you married. And here's what happens. What happens when they pass away before you do? And you have to bury in the ground the one thing that gave you joy. Who's gonna take care of you when you're dying of a broken heart in that moment? I watched my mom bury my stepfather in 2010, and she was sitting there watching his body get lowered into the ground in January in the middle of Toronto. And I remember she just wouldn't leave. And she was just like, it's so cold. It's so cold. Some of you trust to your jobs to give you joy, but they change, you lose them. Some of you look at your kids and you're like, well, at least I have my kids. They'll always love me. I hate to tell you, I mean, I know when they're super young, they love you because they have no other choice. They have no options, by the way. But you know, I looked to my 18-year-old the other day. I said, honey, you used to think I was so much cooler than you do now. And she's like, I never really did, actually. I was like, oh, wow, all right. That's cool. Jesus' parable says the kingdom of God is like a man who found a field, bought it, and had great joy. Keeping up. All the way through the Bible. Final principle, eternal perspective, not temporal perspective. Eternal perspective, not temporal perspective, is the only way you're gonna have lasting joy. Meaning you gotta be thinking about 80 billion years, not just the 80 you get on this planet. You gotta think about heaven, because that's gonna help you live. It's like okay, May 22nd, 2010, there's a guy named Laszlo Haniewski. This is a picture of him. You guys know who this is? Anyone know who this is? This guy in 2010 was hungry for pizza. So he paid a Papa John's pizza delivery man 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. You know what 10,000 Bitcoin would be worth today? $950 million for 2 pizzas. That is the face of regret. But we look at him and we think, oh my gosh, why are you so dumb? But here's how dumb y'all are. You never bought no Bitcoin in 2010 either. You see, if he could time travel back, he would take that money back, to take those Bitcoin back. He wouldn't do it because time going on gives you perspective, and then we begin to live backwards from what we know, and we wish we could travel back in time and change little things about life. This is why the Bible's constantly trying to get your face and eyes focused on the future, and it says there's a place called heaven. That's the ultimate place of joy, and when you have that in your heart, then when you get that cancer diagnosis, you can wake up in the morning still. Because you have the perspective of what you know is coming in the future, and it begins to work backward on how you wake up on Tuesday and how you begin to live your life. And without that, all joy gets removed from life. This is why the Bible talks about serious joy. It's a deeper soul level joy that we get. Remember that scene in Shawshank Redemption where he's in prison, of course, and he gets put in solitary, and he's in there for a month, and he grows a big beard, and he sees no light, and he's in there all by himself, and he's suffering, and he comes out of solitary, and he's sitting there, and they're like, well, how bad was it? And he's like, well, at least I had the music. And they're like, oh, they let you bring that record player down in there in solitary confinement? He's like, no, it was in my head, and they can't steal that. This is why the Bible's constantly trying to drive heaven into your mind and into your hearts, because once you have that, no circumstance in life can actually ever steal it from you. So, once you have that, one of the mentors in my life was named Paul Johnson. Paul experienced a lot of pain and difficulty in his life. He lost a wife to cancer, and while he was our pastor, his son got murdered. He's taking care of a house one night, and he looked out the window, and there was two guys rustling around in the back, and they shot him. 22 years old. And I would spend time with Paul and just be like, how do you find joy when you wake up in the morning? And he's like, oh, because this life, however long you get in this life, it's all just preparation for heaven. That's all this is. And once you have that perspective, man, anything can happen. That's what gets rooted in life. So here's what I want to do. I want all of us to stand. And I want everyone to close your eyes. And I'm just gonna take 1 minute to do something. I don't want you to leave, I want you to stay where you are. And I want everyone to just close your eyes. And I want you to reflect on one thing. It's the story of a guy named Horatio Spafford. Horatio Spafford was an American lawyer who lost everything in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Only 2 years later, he sent his wife Anna and their 4 daughters on a ship across the Atlantic Ocean to England for a trip. The ship hit another ship on the way and began to sink. And as it was sinking, Anna got the 4 little girls together and they prayed. And then the ship went under the water and they were all scattered into the waves, and all 4 little girls drowned. Anna was found unconscious by a rescue ship floating, and they rescued her and they took her to England, and she cabled Horatio Spafford with the words, "Saved alone." So when Horatio Spafford was on the ship over to England to bring his wife home, listen to this, he began to write a hymn. You're on a ship going to get your wife, and your 4 little girls have died in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, and he's on the ship writing a hymn. It is well with my soul. When peace like a river, when sea billows roll. He has the perspective where he says, my soul is with Jesus, my heart is with Jesus, my mind is with Jesus, and nothing in this life can take it. And so we're gonna end by singing the words of Horatio Spafford's hymn, It Is Well.
Peace like a river attendeth my way when sorrows like sea billows roll. Taught me to say it It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
I sing, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin not in part, but the whole. Was nailed to the cross, and now I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh praise the Lord, oh my soul.
It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall be sight. The clouds be rolled back as a scroll, and the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend.
right, guys, thanks so much for watching our Bayside online service. We're so glad that you're actually part of our church, which you are, even though you're watching from all over the world, and we have people literally watching from all over the world. You are part of our family, and we want to get to know you. So please make sure you get in touch with us. Let us know your story. We'd love to hear you and serve you in any way we can. Also, part of what drives the way we connect as a church globally is giving. And so if you're part of our family, we would love you to start giving to our church. Those resources, we steward them to reach people all over the world. And we hear amazing stories about what Jesus is doing with your resources. So if you already give, thank you. If not, you can start giving. We would love that. And then finally, we have all kinds of stuff we do. We have a podcast network. We have like 10 podcasts that address a whole bunch of different things in your life. So if you're a podcaster, join us in the Thrive Podcast Network. We'd love to serve you. We've got a ton of stuff there. We just want to make sure that you feel part of our family. So we love you. Thank you so much for being part of this family, and we will see you next week.